shot. So that was our recap. Now we finish the circle tonight, and then next week we'll look at the lines between, and I'll bring my wool with me wherever we go. So we're on to the fives now. What are the fives called? The observers. So we move from that high complete emotion to actually complete thought, and we started with the anger over here. We've got the feelings, now we're in the thinkers, the head people. Fives are loners, entrenched in their inner world like a hermit in their ivory tower. They prefer thought to action. They are calm and analytical, not really fond of social contacts, and sometimes appear cold and distant. They have a talent for synthesizing ideas. Five need more solitude than most people. They generally prefer to watch what happens rather than participate in it. They don't like talking about themselves or their feelings. They are more successful at getting in touch with their emotions when they are alone. They are never bored being alone because their mind is always active. They feel the need to protect their time and their energy. Often they prefer to lead a simple life, without complications, and as independent as possible. They like living in privacy, discretion, even silence. They like observing and stepping back. They like knowing and understanding. They like thinking, finding out why things are the way they are. They dislike intrusion into their personal space. They dislike things that are worldly, unnecessary, or superfluous. They dislike noise. They dislike trivial conversations. They dislike questions about their emotions. They dislike the unexpected. They dislike emotional displays. And they dislike on-the-spot decision-making. Their root sin is avarice. They desire that other thing. Mainly they want knowledge. They're seeking after knowledge all the time. They want understanding. When they're going too far into that. Avarice comes from fear of not having enough. To counteract this, fives become hoarders, particularly protecting their time, their presence, their personal space. They entrench themselves in the intellectual world. One of them says, when I go into my spiral of wanting to know everything, I can become cold, distant, and intellectually arrogant. And their virtue is non-attachment. So actually where they can sit in that space of being separate and not kind of be desiring what other people have. It's disconnect from that kind of desire of non-attachment, and to be at peace with themselves. I will mention the country for this one, because actually the country for this, I mentioned countries last time, and that's where we said the threes are very American. Fives are the Brits, the traditional stiff upper lip, reserved Brit. We're not going to talk about our emotions. We're not going to talk politics or anything that kind of touches on those sensitive topics that might bring up emotions. We just keep things in the abstract. We'll talk about the weather. That's what we'll talk about. So that's the country of the fives. The sixes. The sixes have a lot of imagination. They often use it for predicting what could threaten their security. I'm always imagining the worst. What if something breaks down? If it rains? If I arrive late? They have a talent for detecting flaws in what is left unsaid in arguments. When they are faced with danger, they are torn between two extreme behaviours, fight or flight. Sixes would like to be more trusting, but instead they tend to be suspicious of people and things. Their relationship to authority is ambivalent. On the one hand, it gives them security, but on the other hand, they don't trust it. Doubt is often present, which makes them often speak in reaction to what you say, rather than starting with their own opinion. Once they are committed to a person or a cause, they are unfailingly loyal. They have a tendency to identify with the underdog. And before I get into the likes and dislikes, that whole thing about they're caught between that fight and flight, in many respects, more than any other kind of type, much more. Six is almost two types. You can always kind of describe them as two types. Those that will veer towards the flight, and those that will veer towards the fight kind of response. But they are caught much again the way that kind of early years trauma can end up with that place of actually I'm really fidgety, and you kind of I've seen it in children who've had a lot of neglect early on, that they make noises and they kind of shuffling around all the time because they're not sure in this high stress situation that is life what I should be doing, whether I should be fighting or running. The sixes, in some respects, are always caught in that. They're very aware of the tensions around them, very aware of what's going on, very aware of the problems, which is what makes them very good problem solvers, because whereas the rest of us might gloss over the dangers of life, they've noticed it, and they're like, right, we need to sort this out, we need to sort this out, we need to sort this out, and finding that. But you do generally, most sixes will fall into that fight or flight kind of mentality. They like clear-cut situations. They like the feeling of security. They like loyalty. They like having enough time to prepare, to adapt. They like playing devil's advocate to test your sincerity. They dislike vague or unpredictable authority figures. They dislike treason, deceit. They dislike ambiguous situations. They dislike the unexpected. They dislike smooth talkers and superficial arguments. They dislike starting something without knowing where it's going to end. And they dislike something trying to pull the wool, or someone trying to pull the wool over their eyes. And this is, in many respects, so in the traditional kind of lists of the original sins, there's only 8. We've got 9 here, and 6s are the 9th one, because their original sin is fear. And you kind of think fear doesn't really make sense in a sin, but actually when it's kind of that vice, that thing that you trip up over, the thing that holds you back in life, fear can very much be that. And that's the thing that can hold them back. So the flip side of that is courage. Their virtue is courage, being able to actually know what all of the things are to be afraid of and still to go forwards. Actually takes a huge amount of courage, and that's rather be paralysed rather than be paralysed by it. So that's our 6s. And we'll discuss these after we've read the best personality type. It says the enthusiast on this list, the epicure. I still don't know what that means. No, exactly. So let's go with the enthusiast.
The 5s would know what it meant.
It's true. And if not, they'll find out very soon. Sevens are quick to talk and like to play. They tend not to feel tied to any commitment that is imposed on them by others. Always on the go, they like to plan and have choice between several possibilities. Commitment is a trap. Sevens are optimists. They like to take on new projects, cheerful and lively. They are the life of the party. Champagne flows through their veins. Most probably still does quite a bit. Life is without limits, full of wide open spaces and adventure. Their quick mind jumps rapidly from one idea to another, which enables them to make connections between lots of ideas. They like doing a lot of things at once, such as reading several books at one time. They start a lot of things but rarely see them through. They have trouble concentrating on difficult and repetitive tasks. They like to have an overall view of the way things fit together, but once they understand it, they tend to get bored and move on to the next thing. They have trouble facing the uncomfortable side of life. They prefer to turn their thoughts to more pleasant ideas. They like variety, they like adventure and travel, they like a good laugh, they like being charming, they like making plans, they like collecting pleasures. They dislike feeling shut in. They dislike taking great pain over details. They dislike doing the same thing for a long time. They dislike boredom. I don't know if anyone likes boredom, but anyway. They dislike routine. They dislike meetings that go on and on. They dislike days when nothing happens. And their root sin is gluttony. And that's not necessarily about finishing off the full plate of biscuits. I'm glad they're over there. So it's not necessarily about food, but it is about just filling your life with all the good things and trying to, and just the belief that if I just have more and more good stuff, then I don't have to face the bad stuff. And the kind of the root behind that is kind of an idea of I missed out something in childhood. I was neglected in some way in childhood, so I never want to feel that neglect again. So I never want to feel like I've missed out on anything again. So I'm just going to keep on filling it. They become afraid of missing something. They become gluttons. They can't stop eating, laughing, moving on to more pleasures. Then they go into a spiral of wanting everything immediately. There's big impatience there. And they can't focus. They can't make the most of the present and become eternally dissatisfied. And then their virtue is sobriety and actually learning to find the joy in life without filling yourself with everything too much. So there's our final three. Should we stop the video at that point? And I think it was a bit of a shorter